Lucas, and welcome to Book 101. Book 101 is about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's F-16 fighter pilot, as well as a speaker, no other than Mr. Anthony Bourke. Welcome, Mr. Anthony. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Hey, Daniel, thank you so much. Great to be on your show. And feel free to call me Anthony, Anthony Bourke. A lot of people call me AB. That is my call sign from my days as a U.S. Air Force F-16 pilot. In my case, AB happened to be my initials, Anthony Bourke. But it is also what many pilots refer to as afterburner or AB, the position of choice that fighter pilots like to use when they want to go somewhere in a hurry. So full afterburner or full AB. So feel free to address me either way. And as I said, I'm honored to be here with you today.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. AB. And today, let's talk about your leadership lessons from the fighter pilot. So tell us, how would you define the essence of fighter pilot leadership, and how is it different from traditional corporate leadership models?
Boy, good question right off the bat. Fighter pilot leadership, I would say, is based on a culture of continuous improvement, uh, identifying people and then training them, uh, people that want to drive a culture of continuous improvement, people that are striving to get just a little bit better every day, people who never settle for where they are. They never become complacent. They want to be the best. They want to be the best fighter pilot in their squadron. They want to be in the best squadron in the Air Force, and they want to be in the best Air Force in the world. So it's a culture of thoroughbreds. It's a culture of highly competitive people, and it's a culture of people who want to win. And of course, we want to win because you know we bet the decisions and actions that we bet our lives on the decisions and actions we make as fighter pilots every day. I might argue in business, people bet their lives on the decision and actions they make every day as business leaders as well. Maybe you don't die, but if you continue to repeat mistakes, if you continue to make bad decisions as business leaders, we know that um, you know divisions close down, people lose their jobs, they sell their houses, they pull their kids out of schools. Life can change pretty dramatically. So I think at its core, the business, the world of the fighter pilot and the world of a business leader are very, very similar.
Interesting, Mr. AB. And fighter pilots rely heavily on checklists for safety. You must be incredibly creative in dynamic situations. How do you balance rigorous process with the need for adaptive, creative thinking under pressure?
Daniel, not many people are smart enough to think of that. That's a really great question and a really important one because uh, fighter pilots are incredibly process driven. As you said, we use checklists for everything we do. We use checklists in our normal daily procedures for everything, for before engine start, before taxi, before takeoff. Uh, before air refueling, before dropping our bombs, and certainly before landing and before shutdown. Checklists are a very important part of our lesson, of our lives. We also use checklists to save our butt in an emergency when we're not thinking clearly and we need to do the right thing the first time, every time. But I would take that outside of the cockpit and say, to a large degree, fighter pilots use checklists or standardize the way we do business. We standardize the way we prepare or plan for a mission. We standardize the way we brief our missions. We standardize the way we debrief our missions. And we standardized the ops tempo of our squadron. Now, what's great about that, because I have so many people tell me that's super for you as a fighter pilot. You're in a very hierarchical, disciplined organization, but I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a leader, and we're constantly innovating, and we can't have that much regimentation in our business. And I might argue that because we standardize so many things that we do in the cockpit and out of the cockpit as fighter pilots, we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time we hold a meeting, every time we plan a mission. The way we do our planning and the way we brief our missions is standardized. What that allows is it allows us to spend much more time innovating and thinking about what really matters. The tactics we're going to use in different environments to overcome our enemies and win the war. So to some degree, standardization and checklists allow you, they free your mind to not reinvent the wheel every time you get in front of a customer, to not reinvent the wheel every time you hold a board meeting, every time you hold a management meeting, every time you hold a customer meeting. And now you can free up your mind to think about what really matters, which is, what's going to be important to my board? What's going to be important to my customer? What products or solutions can we offer to beat the competition and win the business?
Very well said, Mr. AB. Truly, truly empowering answer. And how does Colonel John Boyd's observe, orient, decide, act, loop concept translate from aerial combat to everyday business decision making?
Say that question again, please.
How does Colonel John Boyd's loop, like observe, orient, decide, and act, concept translate from aerial combat to everyday business decision making?
Yeah, the OODA loop, that is made famous by Colonel John Boyd, and I think he recently released a book on that subject. It is a great idea, and essentially, it's the way so many fighter pilots do business. Observe, and you'll have to remind me of the acronym because I
Orient,
observe,
decide,
orient,
act.
decide, act. Exactly right. So observe what the competition is doing or what the environment is bringing you. Orient yourself to the specific
Decide.
situation that you're in. Make some decisions. Now, I'm going to stop there because I think this is really important. We make decisions rapidly in aerial combat because we are well trained. The US Air Force, the Canadian Air Force, and military organizations around the world, maybe differently than so many corporations, invest an incredible amount of money in our training. So we both train in live jets and in simulators. And I like to say, by the time we get into a combat environment, we've seen the movie many times. There's not live bullets coming up at us, but we're so well trained and we've been through the scenario so many times that no matter what you throw at us, we can decide very quickly based on observing and looking at, as you said, the environment. We make a decision and then we act very quickly. I think the other thing that fighter pilots do a good job of is at the end of the day, or in our world, at the end of the mission, we always call timeout and hold a debrief. We have a saying that no fighter pilot has ever flown the perfect mission. And I think it's fair to say that the leaders watching this presentation will never have the perfect day, the perfect week, the perfect month, the perfect project, the perfect customer engagement or event. And that's why when fighter pilots are done executing our missions, we always, always, always call timeout and hold a debrief. So we can learn from both the mistakes and the victories of today's mission, and we can continue to improve as individuals, certainly as a team, but maybe most importantly, So as leaders, we can find a way to call timeout from time to time, not all the time, but at the appropriate time, close the door, create a safe environment, and get our people and our customers and our partners to give us the honest real-time feedback we need to keep us ahead of the threats, ahead of the competition, and ahead of the inevitable change that will continue to come our way. So I hope that ties in well to your OODA loop question, because this concept of debrief is so critical to learning, growing, and developing this culture of continuous improvement that fighter pilots hold so dearly, and I think most leaders should or do hold so dearly.
Indeed, people, we need a timeout to be better in life. So, on teamwork and communication, what does profound concept of having each other's six, watching each other's back, teach us about building absolute trust and vulnerability within a team?
You almost sound like a fighter pilot, Daniel. Are you a
Thank you.
pilot yourself?
No, thank you. I'm a podcaster, so
You fly the studio.
yes,
Well,
through your imagination.
this idea of checking six is such a great concept. And of course, when you talk about checking six or flying with a wingman, we say as fighter pilots, when we're flying a jet at high speed, low altitude in a threatening environment, our primary job is to check 12 o'clock. Look out the front of the airplane, 12 o'clock right in front of you, and make sure you're not going to run into the ground, and make sure you're not going to run into any other airplanes, and you're watching out for threats. Your secondary job is to check 6 o'clock directly behind you, where an enemy would love to sneak up and put a missile up your tailpipe. And of course, our tertiary job is to look over at our wingman, who is generally flying in what we call a line abreast formation, usually about 6,000 to 9,000 feet line abreast of us, and check their 6 o'clock. Check behind them to make sure that nobody's sneaking up on them. And Daniel, I can't tell you how many times this philosophy has saved my bacon. When I've been flying high speed, low altitude, leading a mission, and I get my head buried in the cockpit, navigating, looking at my map, trying to figure out where we're going. And my wingman looks over and says, "Hey, lead, are you okay? You need to react instantly. You've got a bogey, a bandit coming up behind you that's about to shoot you out of the sky. You've got to break right and react. You're about to get blown out of the sky. You've got a threat behind you you don't even know is coming." Or it's saved my bacon so many other times. Again, high speed, low altitude, and I'm looking at my radar scope trying to dig out a threat. And my lead or my wingman looks over at me and says, "Hey, lead, how you doing? You're too low to the ground. You're drifting below a safe altitude. Let me help you out. Let me get you back in formation so you can keep flying safely." And I think about that in terms of business. Doesn't it make sense for us in business to have a wingman, whether it's your assistant, whether it's another salesperson on the team that you're paired up with, whether it's an operations partner that works with a sales engineer, to have somebody that can look over at you from time to time and say, "Hey, Daniel, how you doing? I've left you 3 voicemails. I've sent you 2 emails, and you're not calling me back. Are you okay? You've got a big deal coming that's about to blow you up if you don't react to it right away. Let me help you out. Let me get you back in formation. What can I do for you?" Or, similar situation to what I said before. You've got the same person that looks over and goes, "Daniel, how you doing? You're not responding to voicemails. You're not responding to emails. I'm afraid you're overloaded. Let me help you out. Let me lighten your load. Let me get you back in formation away from the ground before you blow yourself up. Let me help you out." So flying in formation, checking 12 o'clock to make sure you're doing your own job, but as appropriate, checking 6 o'clock of your wingman to make sure that they're flying in formation. They're not too low to the ground. They're not going to get blown up is pretty valuable in business as it is in aerial combat.
Again, very well said, Mr. AB. Yes, we need a wingman in everything we do, people. So fighter pilots are famous for their brutal, blameless debrief where ego is left at the door. How can leaders cultivate this kind of psychological safe environment to maximize learning from both success and failures?
Boy, another fantastic question. And I get asked this all the time, boy, AB, I love your concept of debrief, but, in my business, we've got a lot of egos. Uh, how do you create an environment where you can give and receive feedback without fear of reputational risk? How can I do that in my business? How do you do that in a fighter squadron? And my first answer to a question like that is, uh, fantastic question, but more importantly, we have a couple egos in a fighter squadron as well. Sometimes I joke that in a fighter squadron, you've got people's heads that are so big that I don't even know how they make it through the door. They're pretty pumped up. They're pretty proud of themselves. But we have a culture in the military that says when the door to the debriefing room closes, something magical happens. Name tags come off the chest. They are literally Velcroed on our flight suits. We rip them off. We throw them down on the table. Rank comes off our shoulders, and we hold a debrief where there is no fear of hierarchy, and the sole purpose is to learn and to get better. Now, that sounds like a great concept, and that is a cultural concept that's been built. It's really written in blood over many years of tactical aviation missions in the military. But how do you create that environment as a leader in your own company? I would offer you two techniques. The first is find a way as the leader of the debrief to start out the debrief by setting the tone so people feel safe to give and receive honest feedback. So in a fighter squadron, it's quite common, we say, to be the first one as the leader to unzip your flight suit and open your chest for daggers. That might sound something like this. Hey, Daniel, great mission today. I mean, geez, we were bombs on target. We were on time. We were in formation. We looked good. We sounded good on the radio. I mean, just great job all the way around. But as I was walking back in from the jet, back to our debrief here, I was just thinking to myself, I kind of planned today's mission in a bubble. I kind of did it myself. And I should have definitely got you involved. I should have gotten our other two wingmen involved. Four heads are always going to be better than one. You would have been much more bought into the plan. That's a hit on me. I'm going to do that better next time. Now, what have I essentially done there, Daniel? It's a little off-putting, isn't it? I'm the first one to admit that there's some things I could have done better or differently. And hopefully that makes you feel comfortable to do the same. Some people don't feel comfortable starting off a debrief that way. So another technique you might try, and I know many businesses that use this because I preach it all the time, is just develop some verbiage to start your debrief so people know it's a safe environment. Maybe it would sound something like this. Hey, Daniel, for the next 15 minutes, you and I are going to be debriefing. And I just want to remind you, this is the safe zone. This is how we learn and get better. So I will expect your honest feedback because I can't be a better leader without it. And you know what? I'll do the same for you because I want to help you continue to improve and grow in this company. And I just want to remind you what's said in the debrief stays in the debrief. We're not going to talk about it outside of the halls. We're going to take today's lessons learned and we're going to roll them into tomorrow's plan. However, whatever verbiage you say, if you can find a way to set the tone at the beginning of the debrief, you'll find that you get people to open up and give you the honest, real-time feedback you need as a leader. Now, I want to make one more point, and I know I'm going long on this, but I think it's important. Certainly in a fighter squadron, And I think in your business, when the debrief's over and we walk back out in the hall, uh, if I'm with a senior officer and they tell me to jump, I'm not going to say, "Hey, sir, I've been thinking about jumping and I don't think it's really a good idea anymore." No, we're back in execution mode. And I'm just going to say, "Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. How high?" We're back into execution phase. But in this safe environment that we call debrief, rank and hierarchy go away, and it's all about learning and getting better.
Getting better indeed. That is the main idea. So, Mr. AB, on decision making and under pressure, the 70% solution. In the cockpit, a good decision now is better than perfect decision too late. How do you apply this concept of the 70% solution in business to avoid analysis paralysis?
Yeah. uh, um, was it Malcolm Gladwell that wrote the book Blink?
Hmm.
Are you familiar with that one?
No, sorry.
It's definitely worth a read. And his premise is that you can analyze for hours, you can analyze for days in business to make decisions. But ultimately, your what he calls blink reaction is going to be right 80% of the time or more. Your gut instinct. And I'll add to that, that is especially true if you are well trained. So I think in a tactical environment, you've got to go with your gut. Uh, and you've got to believe that you're going to be right a good percentage of the time. And you know what? Sometimes we're not going to be right. We know no one's ever going to have the perfect day, week, or month. And that's why when the mission is over, we call time out and debrief so we can continue to get better. But um, we have analytical types and we have people that shoot from the hip. I think there's probably in business a good medium, and it's good for the analyst types to, you know, come see eye to eye and work closely with people who shoot from their hip or go by intuition. But in the end, your intuition, your first reaction, especially if you're experienced, especially if you're constantly training to get better, your blink reaction is going to be very effective, and go with it full bore.
Interesting, Mr. AB. For sure, truly, truly empowering. As F-16 fighter pilot, speaker, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Say that again, Daniel.
What are your short-term and long-term goals, Mr. AB?
Okay. Well, as a F-16 fighter pilot, unfortunately, I've been put out to pasture. I flew F-16s. Well, I flew F-4 Phantoms on active duty early in my career, and then I flew F-16, what we call Vipers, for almost another 15 years in the Guard and Reserve. And I retired in 2000, or I stopped flying in 2003. I retired in 2007. So my goals as a fighter pilot, both short and long term, are quite clear. I'm retired, and I have to tell you, this is no longer a 9G body. 9Gs is the maximum G force the F-16 can pull. It is incredibly physically demanding. And I'll just quickly say, G force is the force of gravity. So right now, you and I are both experiencing 1G, or 1 times the force of gravity. That's what's keeping you in your chair right now. And under 1G, your head weighs about 10 pounds. But under 2Gs, your head weighs 20 pounds. And under 9Gs, your head weighs 90 pounds. And under those kind of G forces, it is harder to breathe. It is harder to move. It is harder to think. Everything is harder under G forces. So this is like playing football in the NFL. This is a physically demanding game, and it is a young man's or young woman's game. So I feel lucky to have flown fighter jets that long. And now I feel lucky to be alive and doing other things. And so my short and long term goals today are I live in a beautiful place called Park City, Utah. I love my business. I speak 30 to 40 times a year at corporate meetings and events around the country and really around the world. And I would like to do that for another 20 years. I get such satisfaction from working with great companies and trying to offer them ideas for how they can get better. And in the long term, although 20 years does seem like a long term, I want to continue to grow as a father, and now in my case, as a grandfather, as a friend, and really as a mentor to others who are trying to start and build great businesses.
Good luck to you goals, Mr. Anthony, and looking forward for more success. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
Well, I believe with all my heart that it is always a good idea to pursue your passion in life. Um, if you pursue something that you care deeply about, that you believe in, that you feel you have a sense of mission around, you will likely be more effective in your job. You will likely enjoy what you're doing and have a better personal happiness. And even more, maybe importantly, you will much more likely be successful. And if you're successful, probably financial freedom will follow that. So that's probably my number one passion. And then the other one is around trust, building trust with those who you work with in your company and those outside of your company. I mean, I think it's become pretty clear that people make decisions and choose to work with people they like and they trust. And then they will justify those decisions later with data. So build trust. Think carefully before you break trust with people, because your career will be long and you will be surprised how things come around 1 year later, 2 years later, 10 years later.
Thank you for that advice, Mr. AB. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
A couple of books.
Yes, please.
I'll do one. One is around tactical aviation, and the other by on business. The first one is written by Robin Olds and actually his daughter, Ghostwriter, which I believe is called A Fighter Pilot's Memoir. And it is just a wonderful story of General Robin Olds, retired and actually now passed away, who flew in World War II. He flew in Korea. He flew in Vietnam. And he was really one of the greatest fighter pilots that ever walked the earth. I had the honor of meeting him when he visited my squadron many years ago. And, he lived up to everything I hoped he would. And the book is very well written and a great read. So it will give you a great insight into the mind of a super fighter pilot and kind of the history of tactical aviation. On the business front, I think my favorite book still to this day is From Good to Great by Jim Collins. Again, I've had the pleasure of meeting Jim Collins a number of times. I admire him immensely. And, for those that haven't read the book, Jim Collins looked at, he sifted through with the help of a bunch of Stanford MBAs to try to figure out in this time period that he was looking, what were the most successful companies in the business world at that time. And then he looked at what characteristics did their leaders have that made them so successful. And he identified a quality that he called the level 5 leader. And in his words, and I now would say in my words, these are leaders that are not necessarily charismatic. They're not necessarily loud. They're not necessarily boisterous. They are leaders who are thoughtful and who empower the other people in their company, the people who work for them and with them, to speak up, to speak honestly, to speak openly so they can continue to improve. He developed the idea of the flywheel and, turning the flywheel. And as I said earlier, constantly improving, getting a little bit better every day until your business is really humming on all 8 cylinders. So super fascinating book, very, very well written. And I think I learned a lot about it as a leader.
Thank you for the recommended books, Mr. AB. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please to listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my Abstract Essay is already in fifth season, Abstract Poetry in second season, my Book 101 review in fifth season too, Comedy 101 in second season, and my Food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast, Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. AB, what is the ultimate mark of a successful leader in the cockpit or in the boardroom? Is it a mission success, team growth, or something else?
In the cockpit, it's clearly mission success. Being able to, as we say, put bombs on time, on target, and bring everyone home safely. I might argue it's the same in the boardroom. I mean, it's to hit your goals on time, on target, continue to grow, continue to develop great people. So I do think the fighter pilot world and the business leader world is very, very similar. I like to joke that in both worlds, if we do our jobs, it's very rare that anyone really says thank you. We've just done our job. We've been great leaders. We hit our goals. We had a good quarter. We had a good year. But if things go wrong, we're going to hear about it. Not only, are you going to hear about it, but people can get hurt. Business can shut down. Divisions can go away. And so I think the decisions and actions we both make are critical to the success of our mission, or in business, the success of our business. So on time, on target, every day will make you a successful leader.
Mr. Anthony Bourke, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, any projects that you're doing, or anything you want to promote on Book 101?
Great. No, I'd love to meet some of your listeners and have the opportunity to speak to them one day.
Yes, definitely, Mr. Anthony. And yes, people, let's support Mr. Anthony. Anything that you want to talk about to him, please reach out and visit the website itself. So, Mr. Anthony, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. Great job today.
Likewise, Mr. Anthony. More to come, people. See you soon.